Disclaimer: this fictional narrative is intended only as entertainment. Every character, corporation, address, document, and situation has been created for the story and is not meant to depict any real person, company, legal case, or event. Story: Millionaire husband sent a breakup text to the wrong number. The pregnant wife replied, "Come over. I'll make you forget." One careless text can reveal an affair, but sometimes it can also reveal a plan. Stay with Allison Monroe, because the message she sends back, "Come over. I'll make you forget," will lead her from a quiet nursery to a secret Manhattan loft and, eventually, to a choice about what kind of future she wants for her son. If stories about dignity, accountability, and rebuilding resonate with you, subscribe and keep listening. Sometimes a marriage doesn't end with a confession. Sometimes it ends because one man sends the truth to the wrong number. Buzz. At 11:36 p.m., Allison Monroe looked down at the phone beside her and watched 6 years of marriage change shape. She was standing alone inside the nursery of their Upper East Side townhouse, 7 months pregnant, folding a cream-colored blanket beneath the soft amber glow of a brass lamp. Rain whispered against the windows. On the wall above the empty crib, wooden letters spelled the name she and Nathan had chosen together. Noah. The message had arrived on Allie's old consulting number, a line she still kept active because several longtime clients had never updated their records. Nathan did not have it saved. Victoria Hale had recently changed the private number she used outside Monroe Holdings, and Nathan, who refused to save it under her name, typed the digits from memory while leaving an investor dinner. He entered one digit incorrectly. Allie's phone buzzed. From Nathan. "It's over. I can't keep promising you a future I'm not going to give you." Allie stopped breathing. For several seconds, she simply stared. Then Noah kicked beneath her ribs. Her hand moved instinctively across her belly. "Promising you a future. Not a night. Not a mistake. A future." Nathan Monroe was supposed to be at a late investor dinner in Manhattan. 39 years old. Founder of Monroe Holdings. Millionaire. The man business magazines described as disciplined, strategic, impossible to surprise. At home, he was the husband who kissed Allie's forehead every morning and pressed his hand against her stomach whenever Noah moved. At least, that was the man she thought she knew. Allie checked the receiving line. It was not the number Nathan normally used to reach her. He had not mistaken his wife's contact name for another woman's. He had aimed a private message at an unsaved number and landed on the one number belonging to his wife that he no longer recognized. That tiny mistake gave her a choice. She could reveal herself, or she could answer as the woman Nathan believed he had reached. Allie lowered herself into the rocking chair. Nathan Monroe was supposed to be at a late investor dinner in Manhattan. 39 years old. Founder of Monroe Holdings. Millionaire. The man business magazines described as disciplined, strategic, impossible to surprise. At home, he was the husband who kissed Allie's forehead every morning and pressed his hand against her stomach whenever Noah moved. At least, that was the man she thought she knew. Her eyes returned to the first message. Promising you a future. Not a night. Not a mistake. A future. Allie felt something cold move through her chest. She could call Nathan. She could scream. Ask the question every betrayed wife feared asking. Who is she? But Nathan was good with words. He negotiated acquisitions for a living. Give him 30 seconds, and he could turn suspicion into misunderstanding. Give him 10 minutes, and evidence could disappear. So Allie did something quieter. She looked at her wedding ring, then typed, "Come over. I'll make you forget." Her thumb hovered above send. Click. Delivered. The nursery became unbearably silent. 10 seconds passed. 20. 3 gray dots appeared. Vanished. Returned. Allie's heartbeat climbed. Nathan replied, "The loft." Allie stared at those 2 words. The loft. Not where. Not your place. The loft. A location both Nathan and the intended recipient apparently understood without explanation. Allie had never heard of it. She swallowed and typed one word. Yes. Nathan answered almost immediately. Midnight. Allie looked at the clock. 24 minutes. Her breathing became shallow, but her hands were suddenly steady. Yes. Another message arrived. I'll bring what we talked about. Allie froze again. The affair was already worse than she had imagined, and now there was something else. Something Nathan intended to bring to a secret loft after midnight. She stood and walked toward the nursery window. Outside, Rain covered the dark lawn in silver. Behind her, Noah's empty crib waited for a father who had apparently been promising another woman a future. Allie pressed both hands around her belly. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. She didn't know whether it was true yet, but she knew one thing. Nathan believed he was heading toward a woman who wanted him back. Instead, his pregnant wife had just been given 24 minutes to find the door to his second life. 24 minutes was not enough time to understand a betrayal. It was enough time to remember one. At 11:39 p.m., Allie Monroe left Noah's nursery and moved through the dark hallway toward Nathan's home office. Every step brought back something she had once explained away. 6 months earlier, Nathan had still looked like the husband everyone envied. Before Monroe Holdings became a multi-million-dollar company, Allie had known him without tailored suits, private drivers, or magazine profiles. She remembered cheap takeout beside unfinished investor decks. She remembered correcting presentations at 2 in the morning and using part of her savings when the company struggled to cover expenses. When Allie became pregnant, Nathan cried during the first ultrasound. He bought Noah a ridiculous handcrafted crib and told her, "Our son will never wonder if he was wanted." She believed him. Then came the Wednesday nights. Board dinner. Investor meeting. Emergency call. Different explanations. Same late arrival. Nathan's phone began staying face down during meals. One afternoon, Allie found a florist charge on their statement. She had received no flowers. "Client congratulations," Nathan said without looking up. Another week, she found a gold earring beneath the passenger seat of his car. Nathan smiled. "Victoria rode with me after the strategy meeting." Probably hers. Victoria Hale, Director of Strategy at Monroe Holdings. Beautiful, polished, always composed. Victoria had attended Allie's baby shower 2 months earlier wearing an ivory suit and carrying an expensive gift for Noah. She had touched Allie's arm and smiled. "Nathan is going to be such an incredible father." Allie had hugged her. That memory now felt contaminated. At 11:42, she entered Nathan's office. The room smelled faintly of cedar and coffee. His old MacBook sat inside a cabinet beneath the desk, exactly where he had left it after replacing it months earlier. Allie opened it. The screen illuminated her pale face. The device was still trusted. His account remained signed in. No guessing. No hacking. Just a man so confident in his secrets that he had forgotten an old door remained open. Calendar notifications synchronized first, then saved ride receipts. Allie searched Wednesday evenings. One destination appeared. Again. Mercer House, Manhattan. She clicked the oldest receipt. Unit 14B appeared in the delivery notes. Allie's pulse quickened. She searched the address. More receipts surfaced. Late-night rides. Food deliveries. Dry cleaning. Then a reservation confirmation. Nathan Monroe. Victoria Hale. 2 guests. Allie stopped. Another reservation appeared exactly 1 year earlier. Same restaurant. Same names. Special request. Anniversary table. "No," Allie whispered. She checked the date. 18 months earlier. Long before Noah. Long before pregnancy. Long before Allie had started wondering whether her changing body had made her husband distant. Pregnancy hadn't pushed Nathan away. He had already left pieces of their marriage somewhere else. The clock read 11:49. 11 minutes. Her phone buzzed. "Nathan, you at the loft?" Allie stared at the message. Then the laptop chimed with another synchronized receipt. Mercer House, Unit 14B. Beneath it sat a delivery authorization signed by Victoria Hale. The loft had an address now, and the woman waiting inside Nathan's secret life had a name Allie already knew. The address was real. The woman was real. And at 11:50 p.m., Allie Monroe discovered the affair had an anniversary. She sat beneath the cold blue glow of Nathan's old MacBook, staring at the reservation confirmation until the words stopped looking like English. Nathan Monroe. Victoria Hale. Anniversary table. 18 months. Allie's hand moved instinctively over Noah as he shifted beneath her ribs. For months, she had blamed pregnancy for the distance between them. Maybe she was tired too often. Maybe Nathan no longer found her beautiful. Maybe becoming parents had frightened him. But the dates destroyed every excuse she had quietly made for him. Victoria had existed before Noah, before the nursery, before Nathan cried at the ultrasound. The betrayal had not begun when their marriage became difficult. Nathan had simply become careless enough for Allie to see it. Her phone buzzed. You at the loft? Allie stared at the message. She needed more than an address. Nathan had said he was bringing something they had discussed. If she asked directly, the trap would collapse. So she answered like a woman who already knew. Almost. Bring everything. Delivered. 3 dots appeared. Everything. Allie's heartbeat jumped. Too vague. Too suspicious. She forced herself to think like Victoria. 18 months of waiting. A secret apartment. Promises of a future. A woman in that position wouldn't explain. She would demand. You know what I mean. Nathan waited nearly 30 seconds. I'm bringing the final documents. Documents. Allie looked toward the framed wedding photograph on Nathan's desk. Including my signature pages, she typed. Then she stopped. Too personal. Victoria would never call them my. She deleted the sentence and tried again. Including Allie's signature pages? Send. Silence. 10 seconds. 20. Allie could hear rain tapping against the office windows. Then Nathan replied. Don't write her name. Confirmation. Not confusion. Not what are you talking about? He knew exactly which paper she meant. Another message followed. Yes. Once she signs, I can move everything. Allie's throat tightened. Move what? Money? Property? The company? She didn't know. But suddenly the affair felt like the smallest secret in the room. She typed, then come now. Nathan replied, use the private elevator. Code 4419. Allie stared at the numbers. Nathan had just opened the door himself. She saved screenshots of the conversation and forwarded them to a private email account. Then she returned to the laptop. One final search. Victoria Hale. Mercer House. A photograph attachment appeared inside an old reservation email. Nathan and Victoria stood together on a snowy balcony in Aspen, his arm around her waist, both smiling into the camera. On Victoria's hand was a delicate bracelet Allie recognized immediately. She had seen it at the baby shower. Allie closed the laptop. No scream. No shattered photograph. Just one slow breath. At 11:54 p.m., she pulled on her coat and walked toward the garage. Nathan believed Victoria was waiting at Unit 14B. He believed the documents in his possession would help clear the path toward the future he had promised her. He believed his pregnant wife was home asleep. He was wrong about all 3. Minutes later, Manhattan rose ahead through the rain, glass towers glowing against the black sky. Allie rested one hand beneath her belly as the car moved toward Mercer House. Somewhere inside that building was the loft. Somewhere on the road was Nathan. And between them sat a set of documents important enough that her husband had warned his mistress not to write Allie's name. Tonight, she wasn't going there to catch him cheating. She was going to find out why Nathan Monroe needed his wife's signature before he could finally move everything. The private elevator opened directly into a silence that felt expensive. At 12:21 a.m., Allie Monroe stepped onto the polished floor of Unit 14B and understood immediately why Nathan had called it the loft. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan in silver rain. Warm lamps glowed over cream furniture. A half-finished bottle of bourbon sat beside 2 crystal glasses. Nothing about the apartment looked temporary. Allie closed the elevator behind her and stood perfectly still. Nathan's dark overcoat hung beside a woman's beige trench coat. His running shoes rested beneath a console. A watch box identical to the one in their Connecticut bedroom sat open on a shelf. This was not where Nathan visited Victoria. This was where another version of Nathan lived. Allie moved deeper into the loft. Photographs lined a bookcase. Nathan and Victoria in Aspen. Nathan laughing beside Victoria on a sailboat. Victoria leaning against him beneath Christmas lights. Allie recognized that Christmas. Nathan had left dinner early because an investor was supposedly flying back to London. She touched nothing. She photographed what she could see, then continued toward the bedroom. Half the closet belonged to Nathan. On the dresser sat a small silver key engraved with 2 letters. N+V. Allie stared at it. 18 months reduced to 2 initials carved into metal. Then she noticed a folder on the nightstand. It wasn't hidden. Inside were glossy brochures for private schools, neighborhood listings, and family-friendly properties outside Manhattan. One page had been folded at the corner. Across the top, best school districts for young families. In the margin, Victoria had written, Nathan likes this one. Allie's breath caught. She looked down at Noah beneath her coat. Nathan had been preparing for fatherhood in one house while discussing another family in this one. Her phone showed 12:27. The original midnight plan had shifted in their messages, and Nathan had said he was on his way. Allie returned to the living room. She sat at the dining table facing the private elevator, both hands resting over her belly. She didn't hide. She didn't need to. At 12:34, the elevator mechanism hummed. Allie's heartbeat began pounding against her ribs. Ding! The doors opened. Nathan stepped out carrying a black leather portfolio. His navy suit was damp at the shoulders. He glanced toward the kitchen without noticing her in the dimness. Victoria? Allie said nothing. Nathan placed his keys on the counter. I brought the final documents. He loosened his tie and walked toward the table. Once Allie signs this, I can finally move everything. Allie reached toward the lamp. Click. Warm light flooded the room. Nathan stopped mid-step. The portfolio nearly slipped from his hand. His face changed so quickly it was almost frightening. Confidence. Confusion. Recognition. Fear. Allie. She sat beneath the light, platinum honey blonde hair falling over one shoulder, her pregnant silhouette unmistakable. Her pale blue eyes moved from his face to the portfolio. Move what? Nathan didn't answer. Allie stood slowly. You told Victoria not to write my name. His jaw tightened. How did you? You gave me the elevator code. Silence. Nathan looked toward the photographs, then back at his wife. For the first time that night, the millionaire who built his life around controlling information had no idea how much information she possessed. Allie extended her hand toward the portfolio. You came here expecting another woman. Her voice remained remarkably calm. Instead, you got the one whose signature you need. Nathan didn't move. Allie held out her hand a little farther. So show me the papers. You told me she knew. Victoria Hale's voice entered the room before she did. The private elevator doors slid shut behind her, leaving the three of them inside Unit 14B beneath the warm amber lights. Allie stood beside the dining table, 7 months pregnant, the leather portfolio still in her hands. Nathan moved first. Victoria, leave. She stared at him. What? Go home. Now. Victoria's eyes shifted toward Allie, then down to the open postnuptial agreement. Confusion became recognition. Then something colder. Why is she holding those? Allie watched Nathan's face. He wasn't worried about his wife meeting his mistress. He was worried about what the two women might say to each other. He told you I knew about the affair, didn't he? Allie asked. Nathan turned sharply. Don't. Victoria said nothing. She didn't need to. Her expression answered. Allie continued. He told you our marriage was already over. Victoria swallowed. He said you were staying because of the company. Allie almost laughed. Interesting. Nathan stepped between them. Both of you are emotional. This conversation is over. No, Victoria said. Nathan looked at her. She removed her coat slowly. You told me she refused to divorce you because she wanted access to Monroe Holdings. Allie's pale blue eyes remained fixed on Nathan. And he told me you meant nothing. Victoria went still. What? He said nothing directly tonight. Allie continued. But apparently I'm just uncertainty the company needs protection from. Victoria looked at the portfolio. That agreement was supposed to be voluntary. He was going to tell me it was part of an acquisition. Nathan's polished expression cracked. Stop talking about things neither of you understands. Victoria laughed once. Bitterly. Neither of us. She walked toward the photographs near the window. I spent 18 months believing you were waiting for the right time. Allie felt the number even though she already knew it. 18 months. Victoria turned back. You said after the baby was born, you'd file. Nathan's jaw tightened. Victoria, you said Allie knew we were together. Allie placed one hand over Noah. I learned tonight. Silence. The lie had finally become too large for Nathan to stand inside without being seen. Then Allie remembered the papers. What does he mean by moving everything? Victoria's expression changed. Nathan noticed. Don't answer that. Allie looked at her. What is he moving? Victoria stared at Nathan for several seconds. Something shifted behind her eyes. Self-preservation replacing loyalty. Money between entities. Nathan stepped forward. Enough. The loft. Victoria continued. Aspen. Some dinners. Travel. He reimbursed expenses through Monroe Holdings. Allie's stomach tightened. Personal expenses? Some were categorized as business development. Nathan's voice sharpened. They were legitimate reimbursements. Victoria reached into her handbag. Nathan immediately moved toward her. Give me your phone. She stepped back. No, Victoria. No, she unlocked the screen. I kept the emails because every time I asked when you were leaving, Your story changed. Nathan's face lost color. Allie saw it immediately. This frightened him more than the affair. More than the postnup. Delete them, he said. Victoria stared at him. I already copied everything. The room became silent. She looked at Allie. There's more. Nathan closed his eyes for half a second. Victoria continued. There's a reserve account connected to several holding entities. I saw transfer instructions months ago. Allie's fingers tightened around the portfolio. How much? I don't know. What was it for? Victoria looked toward Nathan. He told me it was how he kept assets flexible before major changes. Allie glanced at the transfer schedule in her hands. Postnup, restructuring, divorce. Suddenly, the pieces no longer looked separate. Nathan had spent 18 months building a second relationship, a second home, and a financial path designed to survive the collapse of his first life. Allie looked at her husband. She had entered Unit 14B expecting to discover another woman. Instead, she had discovered something far more dangerous to a man like Nathan Monroe. A paper trail. By 1:07 a.m. Allie Monroe understood that betrayal was only the first thing her husband had tried to hide. Unit 14B had gone quiet. Nathan stood near the windows with his back to Manhattan, his polished confidence reduced to a rigid jaw and clenched hands. Victoria remained beside the elevator, phone still in her palm. Allie stood between them, 7 months pregnant, holding the portfolio that had transformed one wrong text into a paper trail. Show me, Allie said. Victoria hesitated. The emails. Nathan turned. Victoria, think very carefully. I have. She opened a folder on her phone. Screenshots. Reimbursement approvals. Transfer instructions. Messages discussing holding entities Allie recognized from Monroe Holdings documents. Nothing on the screen alone explained everything. But together, they created questions Nathan clearly did not want anyone asking. You said these were normal, Victoria said. They were. Then why did you tell me never to forward them to corporate accounting? Nathan's silence answered first. Allie looked at him. Why? Because Victoria doesn't understand the structure. Apparently neither do I. You were never involved in treasury. The sentence landed with familiar contempt. Allie remembered the early years when Nathan had discussed every dollar with her because there had barely been enough dollars to discuss. Now wealth had become a language he claimed she was too unsophisticated to understand. Victoria scrolled farther. Here, one email referenced the reserve account and a series of transfers scheduled around the same restructuring period listed in Allie's portfolio. Allie photographed the visible records rather than touching Victoria's phone. Send copies to your attorney, she said. Victoria looked surprised. My attorney? Yes. Yours. Not Nathan's. Not the company's. Nathan stepped forward. Nobody is sending anything. Allie looked at him. You don't get to decide that anymore. His eyes hardened. You think you can walk into one apartment, read documents you don't understand, and destroy 15 years of work? No, Allie's voice remained calm. I think people who understand them should read them. For the first time, Nathan looked genuinely frightened. Not angry. Frightened. Allie, listen to me. Whatever you think happened here, we can resolve it privately. There it was. The offer beneath every powerful man's panic. Silence disguised as peace. Allie glanced around the loft. The photographs. The engraved key. The school brochures. The life Nathan had constructed while telling two women different stories. Privately is how you built this, she said. Victoria lowered her phone. He'll delete whatever he can. Nathan stared at her. Whose side are you on? Victoria's expression turned almost empty. Mine. That answer mattered. Victoria was not suddenly Allie's friend. She had knowingly shared a married man's life for 18 months. But now she understood Nathan had lied to her too, and protecting him no longer protected her. Allie closed the leather portfolio. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling counsel. Nathan laughed without humor. With what? Screenshots and assumptions. With questions. She looked directly into his gray-blue eyes. And apparently, you're terrified someone might answer them. Nathan said nothing. Allie walked toward the private elevator. Before stepping inside, she turned once. Don't come home tonight. Allie, the doors began closing. And don't contact me except about Noah. Nathan's face disappeared behind polished steel. Ding. For the first time since 11:36 p.m., Allie was alone. She placed both hands over her belly as the elevator descended 14 floors. She had not exposed Nathan publicly. She had not threatened him. She had not won anything yet. But by sunrise, 3 separate copies of the evidence would exist with 3 separate professionals. And once the truth stopped living only inside Unit 14B, Nathan Monroe would discover something money had protected him from for years. He could control people. He could control stories. But he could not control evidence after it left his hands. Allie's attorney refused to turn suspicion into a public accusation. The portfolio was treated as a draft, not as a completed transfer of rights. Counsel explained that marital and separate property would have to be identified, valued, and addressed through the divorce process, and that any questionable transfers made around a contemplated matrimonial action would need evidence and context. Allie also stopped searching Nathan's devices once counsel was retained. From that point forward, professionals handled preservation requests, financial disclosure, and the corporate questions. That choice became important. The story was no longer about outsmarting Nathan. It was about making sure the truth could be tested fairly. 6 weeks later, Nathan Monroe entered a private matrimonial conference expecting to negotiate numbers. What he found was a timeline he could no longer explain away. The meeting took place in a neutral Manhattan office, not at Monroe Holdings. Allie sat beside her attorney, almost 8 months pregnant, one hand resting over Noah. Across from them sat Nathan, his matrimonial counsel, and a financial professional retained to help the parties identify disputed transfers and business interests. Allie was not there to prosecute her husband. She was there to understand the marital balance sheet before anyone asked her to sign anything. The first exhibit was simple, a chronology. Mercer House, Unit 14B. The proposed postnuptial agreement. Transfers among several holding entities. The reserve account Victoria had mentioned. Noah's expected birth. A contemplated divorce filing. Nathan looked at the page for a long time. This makes ordinary treasury management look sinister. The neutral financial professional answered carefully. A chronology does not prove motive. It tells us what needs documentation. Allie appreciated the sentence. 6 weeks earlier, she would have wanted someone to declare Nathan guilty of everything she feared. Now she wanted something stronger. Conclusions that survived scrutiny. Nathan's lawyer produced records showing that some transfers were ordinary business movements. Others required more tracing. A portion of the reserve account had legitimate corporate purposes. Several personal expenses connected to the loft, however, appeared to have been submitted through company channels and would have to be addressed separately. Reality was messier than revenge. It was also more believable. Then Allie's attorney placed the draft postnuptial agreement on the table. "No one is signing this," she said. Nathan's mouth tightened. "It was never final." "Then we agree." The room went quiet. Instead, counsel discussed formal financial disclosure, valuation of any marital component of Nathan's business interests, temporary support, Noah's medical expenses, and preservation of relevant records. No one said Allie automatically owned half of Monroe Holdings. No one said Nathan could simply label everything separate property and end the discussion. They would identify it, value it, negotiate what could be negotiated, litigate only what could not. Halfway through the meeting, Nathan's phone vibrated repeatedly. He ignored it until his corporate counsel called the conference room. Nathan excused himself. When he returned, his face had changed. Allie did not ask. His own lawyer did. What happened? Nathan looked toward the window. The audit committee opened an independent review. Victoria, through her attorney, had provided Monroe Holdings with copies of expense records and transfer instructions. The company's outside auditors had also asked questions. Nathan had agreed to step away from day-to-day approval authority while the review proceeded. Not because Allie demanded it. Not because a divorce judge had seized his company. Because a corporation had its own responsibilities separate from a marriage. Nathan looked at Allie. Was this worth it? The question was quieter than anger. Allie placed her palm over Noah. "I didn't ask Victoria to send anything to your company," she said. "I asked for the truth about our marriage. What your company does with its records is between you and the people responsible for it." For the first time, Nathan had no one person to blame. That afternoon ended with no dramatic signature. No winner. No loser. Only agreements about what would happen next. Financial disclosure. Preservation. Temporary arrangements before Noah's birth. Communication through counsel when necessary. And one boundary Allie stated herself. Whatever happens between us, Noah will never be used as leverage. Nathan looked down. After a moment, he nodded. It was the first promise Allie had heard from him in months that she was willing to judge only by what he did afterward. 9 months later, Nathan Monroe asked permission to enter a life he once believed would always wait for him. The message arrived at 8:17 on a quiet Saturday morning. Allie was standing beside the kitchen window of a smaller Connecticut home, holding 6-month-old Noah against her chest while spring sunlight spilled across the hardwood floor. Her son was healthy, warm, half asleep. His tiny fingers curled around the edge of her sweater as if the world had never been complicated. Buzz. Allie looked toward the phone on the counter. Nathan. Months earlier, seeing his name could change her breathing. Now it was simply a name on a screen. She opened the message. I know I ruined everything. Allie said nothing. The divorce judgment had been entered after months of disclosure, negotiation, and review. The investigation at Monroe Holdings had continued after Nathan's administrative leave. Monroe Holdings survived, and Nathan remained wealthy. What changed was his certainty that wealth could keep every part of his life separated and protected. But the authority he once treated as permanent had been restricted while the board addressed the consequences of his decisions. Victoria had left Monroe Holdings and continued cooperating through her own attorney. The settlement protected Allie's resolved marital interests and Noah's future after financial disclosure and negotiation. It did not treat Nathan's entire business as automatically hers. Reality had been quieter than revenge. It had also been enough. Another message appeared. I was wrong about you. Allie looked down at Noah. Your father was wrong about a lot of things, she whispered, without anger. She remembered the nursery 4 months earlier. Rain against the windows. A cream blanket in her hands. Noah's name above an empty crib. Then Nathan's message. It's over. I can't keep promising you a future I'm not going to give you. Wrong number. Wrong woman. One revealing mistake. For weeks, Allie had thought that message destroyed her marriage. Eventually, she understood the truth. The message destroyed nothing. It only opened a door into what had already been broken. Her phone buzzed again. Can I come over? Allie stopped moving. Come over. The words returned from that first night with almost cruel symmetry. She had written them while pretending to be Victoria. Come over. I'll make you forget. Nathan had believed those words would lead him toward his mistress. Instead, they led Allie toward Mercer House, Unit 14B, the postnuptial agreement, the transfers, and every truth he thought wealth could keep behind a private elevator. Now he was the one asking for a door to open. Allie walked toward the window. Outside, a young couple pushed a stroller along the sidewalk. Trees outside were beginning to turn with the season. Ordinary life moved quietly around her. She had once mistaken luxury for security. Now security looked like morning sunlight, a sleeping child, and a house where she no longer wondered whose perfume was on her husband's coat. Buzz. Please, Allie. Just 5 minutes. She could have answered. She could have reminded Nathan about Victoria. The loft. The school brochures. The portfolio. The boardroom. She could have written something devastating enough to make him feel a fraction of what she had felt at 11:36 that night. She didn't. Noah opened his pale blue eyes and looked up at her. Allie smiled. She kissed his forehead, then reached for the phone. For years, Nathan had placed his phone face down at dinner because another life was hidden inside it. Allie locked the screen and placed hers face down now for the opposite reason. There was nothing left to hide. Nothing left to investigate. Nothing left she needed Nathan to explain. She carried Noah toward the sunlit living room without answering. Behind her, the phone remained silent. There was no final speech and no audience waiting for her to win. Just a woman who had stopped confusing being chosen with being valued. Nathan Monroe had spent years believing every problem had a price and every locked door had a code. He learned too late that trust was the one thing he could never buy back. And this time, when he asked to come over, Allie's silence kept the door closed. Allie eventually understood that closure was not a perfect sentence delivered at the perfect moment. It was a routine, legal appointments kept, financial questions answered, pediatric visits attended, and boundaries repeated until they became ordinary. Nathan's relationship with Noah would be measured by what kind of father he chose to become, not by whether Allie reopened their marriage. She could wish him growth without volunteering to be the place where he practiced it.